Hi there, my name is Joe and I want to welcome you to Threads. It's great to have you with us. Today we're going to have a look at some music theory, and it's a bit of an interesting topic for me, one that I really enjoy. I want to look at today how to hear a chord progression and play just by hearing it, based on the quality of the chords in them. So oftentimes I'll be playing and someone might ask me, as I'm the MD usually, someone might ask me, oh, what chords are coming up next? And sometimes I'll say, mainly as a joke or in passing, but like there's some truth in it. I'll say, just feel it, just feel it. And which makes sense to me, but if you're new to this idea, or if you're new to kind of getting into theory, or you're new to playing your instrument, then that's quite a difficult thing to understand. But for me, when I'm playing a chord progression or hearing a chord progression, I can quickly identify the quality of the chords involved. So I haven't got perfect pitch, so I don't know what key a song is in just when it's playing, and I don't know what the chords are by their names just by hearing them. But I can identify the chords qualities, and I can identify the chord progression and put numbers to them. So if you haven't seen our natural number system video, you can head back and watch that, and there'll be a link in the description or something like that. But that would be really helpful for understanding this lesson as well. So let's get into it. So step one to really understanding how to hear and then play chord progressions is understanding how each chord feels, or the tonal quality of each chord. So when you're in the key of, so let's say F, F is, we'll describe that as the tonal center of our piece of music. So we have a song in F, and this is what we call in music theory land the tonic. And the tonic is a place where the whole piece of music is at harmonic rest, let's say. So all the chords and all the melodies, like they can go on a journey throughout the song, but when they come and arrive at chord 1, at the tonic, in this case in F, then the harmony is at rest, and we feel at home. So that's often a helpful way of thinking about this. Chord 1 is home, and then everywhere else we go is a journey from home to somewhere different. There are 4 very common chords that we use almost all the time. They are chords 1, the tonic, chord 4, subdominant, chord 5, dominant, chord 6, the relative minor or the submedium. And so we'll just look at using those today, and we'll look at those chord qualities, the tonal qualities of each of them, and how they link together. So a bit of this we'll be looking at cadences as well. So if you don't know about cadences, you can stick along for the ride and you'll learn something new. So chord 1 is our home. So obviously you can't stay there for the whole of a song because it would be very boring. And so having other chords to move to provides some harmonic content that is interesting for us. And you know that. So chord 4 is often a nice place to go. And what's nice about it is that one of the notes in chord 4, in the key of F, we're in B flat now, the chord B flat. And one of the notes in B flat is shared between F and B flat. So that's the F. So all I'm really doing when I move to B flat is raising 2 notes. So let's strip it right back. This is an F, this is a B flat. And all I'm doing is raising the A to a B flat and the C to a D. So it's not much movement. So it feels like stepping out of the door, but not going too far away from home. And interestingly, the movement from chord 4 to chord 1, or in this case from B flat to F. This is called a plagal cadence. So just to recap, cadences are the chord progressions at the end of a phrase, so where the chords are left when we get to the end of a musical phrase. They either can give a sense of completion of the phrase or leave the phrase hanging harmonically so that we want to lead to the next phrase. So this movement, chord 4 to chord 1, often called the church cadence, because in old church music and like chants and things like that, is a very common sort of ending for the amens at the end of the pieces of music. So that's a plagal cadence, and that has a very, for me, it feels like we're not moving very far, but chord 4 feels like we've stepped out of the door, we're somewhere new, there's new stuff, but we can easily slip back home, and this feels fully rested. The next really common chord that we use is chord 5. In music theory land, we call that the dominant chord. It's a really powerful chord, really important, and it sounds like this in F major. So this is a C. And this is very different to chord 4 and very different to chord 1. Again, there's a shared note between chord 1 and chord 5, which is why moving between them is quite comfortable, and why it makes a good cadence, and we'll get onto that in a second. But chord 5 has a couple of interesting aspects to it. Firstly, we've got the note E, which in F is the leading note, and we discussed in the previous video that the leading note is the note that really draws us back into the tonic note. So if I were to leave that scale there, it would drive me crazy at least. So we wanna finish it. So that's a leading note, and that's a very powerful tension. Music is all about tension and release, and so when you have chords that and notes relationships that provide tension, it gives a great opportunity to move somewhere that releases that tension. And so one of the most powerful things that chord 5 has is that that tension between the leading note and then the home note, called the note 1. So that is one of the reasons why this is such a strong cadence. This is called a perfect cadence because it brings about the sense of completion. So at the end of a musical phrase, you often have, or something like, that's kind of old school. That's kind of like a hymn sort of thing. But yeah, that's the idea. Really strong chord. So chord 6 is a minor chord, and this feels like a minor chord, obviously, and it feels like we're not at home. It feels like we're in some dark woods somewhere. But hope is not lost because we can quickly go to the 4. There are 2 shared notes between chord 6 and chord 4, and if you want to add an extension onto the chord 4, then you could move from a D minor to a B flat major 7 just by adding the B flat underneath. But don't worry too much about that. Point is, this feels quite unique, I think. But it feels similar to, it has the same kind of tension, same kind of pull. We're not as far away from home as we are when we're here. So chord 6 has its own sense of rest, its own sense of harmonic resolve or resolution, but it's not exactly our home. But it is somewhere we could go. And we could sit here for a while and wouldn't feel strange. Whereas if we sat, it feels a bit more more strange. So that's the quality of chord 6, is that it has a harmonic resolution. It has a sense of feeling at home or at rest, but it's not fully at home. And again, it shares 2 notes with F major, D minor here. So in D minor we have an F and an A, which is shared with F major, and that's part of the reason why it feels semi at rest, because there's the shared notes. So moving between chords, how chords relate to one another is an important part of experiencing how to feel chords in your music. So when you hear a chord progression like this, we can start to analyze that and start to see how that feels and start to think about the tonal qualities of each chord, and then we can start attributing that to what number we think that is as well. And then when we attribute it to a number, we can take that from this key into any key as well. So let's look at that chord progression again. So, firstly, we started on chord 1. That was home for us. And then we raised slightly. And if you remember, that kind of slight raising is a kind of chord 4 flavor. So we still have the F, but we've moved our A and a C up 1. And now we're going for a very different flavor. All our notes are moving up. And now we feel like we could go, and there's only one chord that does it quite like that, and that's chord 5. So that's the C. So, but that's not where we go in our chord progression. We're in 4. Because if you figured out that this is chord 4 and it moves up stepwards, then you know that that's going to be chord 5 as well. So it's important to remember that you can just stick to the basic understanding of knowing that these kind of stepward movements, you know that 5 comes after 4, 4 comes after 3, you know that. So you can apply that to this as well. And understanding intervals, so and what these sound like is also really important and really helpful for figuring out chord progressions and for figuring out melodies as well if you're going to do that. Anyway, back to our chord progression. Chord 5. We've moved up 1 and we feel semi-rested. It's chord 6, D minor. And now everything's moved down 1 and we feel like we can't quite stay here, we need to move to home. So what we did was we landed on our D minor, we moved down to our chord 5, and then finally to chord 1. So what I really want to encourage you to do is to mess around with this, to get familiar with chording chords by their numbers as well as their names, and then try and feel and understand the tonal qualities of these chords. So chord 1, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, how do they feel going in between one another? Listen to some of your favorite songs, some of the songs you're doing at church. Try and figure out what the notes are, what the chords are, without looking at any of the sheets. And yeah, see how you